So I thought we'd start with the aspect of this project that's been on everybody's mind for 4.5 years now. Guys, this is the rebuilt raised roadway aspect of the direct connection project in Belmar, New Jersey. I took this video 3 days ago, Saturday, October 11th. I'm gonna highlight some things here. What we're gonna do is step back to March and show you some construction updates because I think it really helps bring home the point of why this new design works. But I also wanna show you guys why the original design of when this thing collapsed in 2021, why that failed. And so you can appreciate what the new design brings to the table. And if you didn't catch that, if you're unfamiliar with, yes, 4.5 years ago, this $1 billion project to raise 295 up over the existing roadways and give it a more direct, straight path. 4.5 years ago, it looked very much like this. And then one morning it collapsed. This front wall here, wall 22, collapsed, slid out, I guess. There's a lot of weight. We're going to take a look at it. It was a shock. Of course, nobody expected it. It's taken 4.5 years to hire an engineering team, a third-party engineer team, first to analyze what went wrong, secondly, to come up with a new game plan for the rebuild. They needed to then tear out all of the old construction and then, of course, build the new construction. That's why it's taken, basically 4 years to get this segment of the wall rebuilt. Let's take a quick step back and I'm going to talk about the problem that happened here. So this is right like a week after the collapse in 2021. This style of wall structure here, it's like individual panels that are interlocked. Guys, this has been used in tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of road projects around the world. It's tried and true, it's proven. That is not the problem with this project. What they did is, if you didn't notice, this wall structure is probably half the height of what we have today in the clip I just showed. How they made up the extra height is they designed and built a man-made hill. All of this is man-made backfill dirt. And honestly, the way I read the engineering review of this, it was sand. And then they built this slope. So this entire heavy structure, all of that dirt, all of that concrete, all that asphalt, sitting on top of 30, 40 feet of man-made hill with a slope, like nothing to hold it back. This darkened dirt you see here was added in after the collapse because they knew they had to get in there and tear this thing apart. And they felt they needed this extra plateau area for construction equipment. So literally this whole thing was just a slope. I'm gonna show you with a slide here that was done by the engineering team of NJDOT. Gonna move fast here. This is a cross section. You're looking at the road from the side. Here is the elevated roadway here. Here's the wall, and then that's the slope. The black and white aspects are not me, that's the engineering team. I added some color, I used this in another video. So there is some foundational elements that go down into the ground, but guys, what they did is they used concrete. They drilled holes in the ground and poured concrete into it. The problem is there's a lot of pressure left and right. And the engineering report called this out, that the concrete was not suitable for this. In fact, when they started tearing this apart, they were finding that these things had snapped. I don't know how many of them, but there was photos of just the chunks of them just snapped in half because the concrete could not handle the pressure in long, thin tubes, basically, spiral tubes. The roadways up here, this yellow part is really the most significant aspect. Guys, this is underneath my arrow here. I don't know why I did it that way. It says soil aggregate. I read it as being mostly sand. This is just backfilled, and there's no wall holding this in. So you got all this weight up here. There is one segment of support member, but you got all this weight here sitting on top of this backfilled dirt. All the rain happens. My best analogy for this is it's kind of like going to your favorite bakery and getting a cream-filled donut. You hold that donut there, it's solid, it's good. And what happens if you squeeze it? The cream finds its way, it finds that hole and it shoots out the hole. Or even if you take a bite of it, you take a bite of a jelly donut and the jelly just pops out in all different directions. Basically, you have the same thing. You have this pressure here and it was pushing down. You had all the rain moistening the ground. Literally, the wall didn't give out. What gave out was the foundation underneath, like that donut, pushed out. The wall had nothing, there's nothing the wall could do but just collapse. In fact, if we went back to that prior image, you would see that the wall at the bottom was following the soil as it moved out, as the cream filling moved out of the donut. So that's why this plan failed. Let's take a quick look from 2 years ago. They tore it all down. 2 years ago, they started the project to rebuild the foundation. So there's actually two aspects of wall here to hold this up. First off, they made this lower level wall for shear, I forget the exact term, shear something, but this aspect is holding up a bunch of the weight and pressure of the lower portion, the back portion of the wall, and also enabled them, it cleared this area so that they can get in here and do work for what would be the main front wall. Guys, look at all these pimply things. They are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I think it's over 500 pylons driven deep into the ground, deep in the bedrock. The folks that live in this neighborhood are very familiar with this process because they basically put a steel beam there and they have this heavy weight that just boom, boom, boom. And you hear it for miles. It shook houses. It made a lot of noise. And they had to do this for all, thank you Belmar residents for putting up with that. They had to do it for all of that. So what ends up happening is, this is not where the wall is constructed. This is actually buried now under the roadway. The wall gets built on top of these pylons. So I stopped it here. Let me see. This out here, you can see the lamp fixture here. This is the original wall where they didn't replace it. So the wall is actually out here. So, oh, I'm sorry. The wall is out here. Here's the lamp post. So that's the old railing. The wall actually is way out here. So what they were able to do is, on top of these hundreds of pylons, built a heavy concrete foundation, and then from that concrete foundation, tied in the rebar that goes into the molds that make the vertical wall segments. So whereas in the failure project, you had that big mushy gap of sand in the middle with all the weight on top of it, in this project, the wall, as it gets built here, we'll see it in the future slides, all that weight is carried through the wall. It's connected down into the concrete foundation that gets developed next, and it gets carried down deep into the bedrock. All right. Hopefully you get a better sense of why the project originally failed. It was the foundation. In fact, as we look at this, you can see there really is no slope. It's a very minimal slope. They're going to have a slope at the end of this. We'll talk about that in a second, just for to move water off of the property. But you can see here, this is March 25th. Much of the wall is developed here. There's some waterproofing aspects going on here. We'll talk about that later. And then over here, I'm going to move to the next March 25th slide. You can see the rebar and the wall going up. So they use these steel forms, two-sided. The wall is tapered. It's fatter on the bottom. It tapers thinner to the top so they can put the railings on. Now, maybe you're noticing, like, wait, Mark, we got a wall there, but there's some rebar here. What's going on there? Well, it's like a two-segment wall in this aspect, because this is where the steel horizontal beams for the overpass connect, as we saw in the beginning clip. So what's going to happen is they first off built this wall, which is literally the wall, just like all these other pieces, to hold the roadway up. This extra aspect behind it is the abutment, where like it's a separate piece. It's like a step up here. You'll see in the next slide where the steel will connect. Now I want to point out, like, perspective. This thing's probably 12 feet tall. You know, because a human's got to fit into it, you know, you stand there. So these rebar here are probably 30, 35 feet tall. Like, and it goes down into the lower foundation there. This foundation here is exposed over here. It's underneath the wall. So let's move on to May 7th. What's that, like 5-6 weeks away? Look how nice that looks. The wall is, you know, mostly developed here. You have some discoloration here. Literally, that's just the way concrete sets. It's the moisture in the concrete. It just takes weeks and months for it to dry. So different segments were poured at different times. You can actually see right here the step that I talked about. So there was that front rebar, now it's a step. Let's move over to 5-7 in the back. You get a nice vantage point from inside. It's kind of like a swimming pool, right? They build this hollow concrete structure, but they fill it in with dirt. Right here you can see how it's tapered. The wall segments are tapered on the bottom and they get thinner at the top. A couple weeks ahead, May 20th, look how nice that looks. May 27th, just another nice vantage point. You can see both of the steps here for the abutment. Now, this is a better angle here. This is where in that first shot, we had steel beams, like they're literally right there, and they rest on that ledge. When I zoom the camera up here, you can see they started filling in, but they also, you know, water management, going back to that original, why did this thing fail in 2021? Water management is a key aspect now. So they have all of these water drainage systems going in, both in the center and then along the front, and there's probably a bunch along the back also. So that was June 12th. June 23rd, guys, look how nice this is. By June 23rd, literally the concrete wall rebuild, the core aspect is done. There's no frames left on site. There's no concrete structures. It goes all the way around and it wraps to this wall here. They use a different technology. The same, those panel technologies that they use for this wall, they just extended here. We'll see that in a second. They also have this scaffolding here. There's like rebar. I don't know if you guys can see it at the top. So they had to put some sort of finishing concrete piece on the top. Now we're moving to June 23rd, just a different angle again from behind. July 13th. This is a nice shot because you see two things. One is you see that they started building the wall here with the retaining wall panels here. And also you get a vantage point, like this is 295 South. And you get a vantage point of how this is going to come across over top of Browning Road, and 295 South connects to that ramp that's been sitting there. 295 North is a new ramp that's being built there, and it'll connect here. And then this little guy, guys, you know that ramp, that Dukes of Hazzard ramp when you're going 42 North and you get past like the Belmar Industrial Park and there's that ramp off to the right? That is 42 North to 295 North. It's back here behind this tree. and you're immediately going to go up in the air. And this entire distance, you're in the air on your own little lane. You come around, like around that guy, you come around here, and then it connects to this and finally emerge on the 295 North. That was July 13th. Now we're up to July 20th. Look how nice that looks. One thing that's changing here is you can see all these drainage pipes, being placed. There's a bunch in storage here, some over here. What's going on? They're going to start adding some additional drainage aspects. August 17th, look how great that looks. A lot of the backfill's done. You can see the wall in the back is complete, except for the top capping. But here you can see these water management pieces. So again, water management and getting it off the property, off the project site is very important. So what I can see with this aspect is you have in the center drainage, you have drainage along the front wall, but then they added these pipes, which then seem to continue on, and there's a horizontal pipe going out. We get a better vantage of that. So this all seems connected to me. You can see these horizontal elements coming out of the road, the raised roadway. If you've built a retaining wall at your house, if it's tall enough, and you have good installers, they've done similar things like this because they know this is like a giant bowl that will collect water. You need to get the water out. So my expectation is these pipes help drain the water from out of there, and then they carry the pipe down through here. Now you're going to notice that, hey Mark, why are these like 8 or 10 feet tall? And what is this black stuff doing here? So there will be like a landscaping slope done for this project in the front when this is done. They don't want water to collect like a lake. We have a big 100-foot front yard and it's flat, and when we get a lot of rain, it just the water puddles there. So they want to have a little bit of slope so that the soil, when it's done, will actually be in line with this blackened sealant, which puts the tops of these pipes at ground level. So these are either access points, manhole points to get in, or they're just additional drainage elements that they have at the front of the wall, which wouldn't hurt, and it carries down. That was August 17th. This is August 17th from a different vantage point. You can see the wall being rebuilt here and basically finished till they do the top capping. August 31st, look how nice that looks. Pretty much this is all filled in at the top. You get a better, closer look at these raised platforms, raised drainage points here, and then you get the piping there. 9/11, God bless America. Again, just looks great. They have this scaffolding going all the way across because they're working on the top pieces of the concrete there. But they've been filling in some of the dirt around here. This used to be much more exposed. And again, when this is done, this will be completely backfilled. 9/11 from the other angle. Look at that. Look how nice that is. They got a truck sitting here. This guy's probably the one going around and installing these additional drainage points. You have all these drainage points. 918 a week later. I wasn't planning on going back on 918, but I got the call from a couple friends and 42 Freeway fans who drive this roadway in the morning and say, hey Mark, they put steel up. So this is a big surprise. 918. It may have been this morning or the day after that I got there with the drone. They put up these 5 pieces initially. You got one queued up there going across. You can see some of the, we'll get a better view in a second. 918 from a closer advantage. They put some sort of like steel brackets there to mount these on. They use the cranes to get the girders in place. But then, you need good solid iron workers, union iron workers to come in and fasten this all together. So that's why you have this crane piece here, whether they're bolting them in, riveting them in, welding them in. 10/11. So this is just a few days ago. So over the last 2 weeks, as I said, they haven't done a lot with adding additional pieces. But look, all of these pieces are new in the area. They're queued up, ready to go. Not a lot of changes here. So I expect very soon to see them start putting the additional pieces. And now remember, this has got to then extend all the way over Browning Road. So I don't know. I don't think they're building another column over here, but maybe there's going to be a long span going on there. Another one from 10/11, just another close-up view. Look, this guy here looks like it's square, like it's almost like it's a different purpose, like it is sort of an access point for support and service. And then the reverse angle. So this is the rebuild in 14 minutes of the Browning, the direct connection Belmar raised roadway that collapsed in 2021. Let's move on to the next segment of this project for the October update. This is just a quick refresher on the Browning Road bridge rebuild since March. It's been rebuilt, the bridge has been removed. This video here is actually from August, but let's go back to March and take a quick look at it here. Here you get actually a double vantage point. You have the rebuilt bridge. This is March 25th again, the rebuilt bridge segment here. Here's the temporary bridge, and you have the what we just reviewed, the rebuilt raised roadway in the distance here. You can see in this shot also, we're gonna do this in a separate piece, some of the interior roadway, the southern part. The southern part of this roadway has probably gotten more attention in the last 4 months than the rest of the project. Jumping ahead to April 20th, they started putting the road surface down on top of the Browning Road Bridge. Here is just, I think I do a pan here. They have like a first layer of concrete poured, it looks like. Or is that, yeah, this looks like concrete and that looks like some sort of material, like they haven't gotten to the center yet. May 20th, look how nice that looks. And you get a nice view of all the different like all these different columns are being poured and developed. And that may be a separate video. Let's see if I can squeeze it in this one, just to explain how they all come together to support 295 going over top of this. This is May 27th. It looks like this is all poured concrete. They have material sitting on top of it. You can see the roadway in the back there in the cemetery. June 7th, things are looking great there. And then, you know, we start getting to the point, when did they start taking the bridge down? Oh, I know what, but this is an interesting clip. This is June 12th. So that's me in the green shirt there, flying my drone, and I was talking to this guy. This guy is the first person, see him waving? The first person to ride a bicycle across the new Browning Road Bridge, right in the lane. He gave us a wave. So I forget your name, buddy, but it was nice talking to you that day. August 17th, you know what, I skipped a bunch. I did a separate video on this, but this is the temporary bridge back here. It was almost at the end. Here's the center columns there. Do I need to show any more? And there was one last change that happened recently that you guys may not be aware of. While they were doing this rebuild, you used to be able to, temporarily, you could drive through the Belmar Park here and go all the way down through to the Belmar Park School. When I was there this weekend, I noticed they closed it off. And I knew this was part of the plan. So now, if you turn into here, this is a parking area just for these homes in the immediate area. You can no longer get from Browning Road down into the Browning Road School, down into the Belmar Park School. All right, guys, let's move on to the next segment. So now we're moving on to the other end of the raised 295 roadway. This is the south side. So much focus has been on that collapsed wall. We forget that there's another side to this thing where it has to land. Now I'm going to stop this here. There's been this ramp sitting here forever, for many years. This is 295 south. So the roadway will come across here in the air and connect to that ramp. This entire ramp is just for 295 south. They need a second ramp to handle 295 north. That is going to be developed in this area here. Now, what they did a couple months ago is, when you're in the lower level, 76, you're coming from Philadelphia, Cherry Hill, and say you want to get on the 295 north. You used to be down here, say where these cars are here, this white truck, and you could just go to the right, and you would go up here, and that would be the roadway. A couple months ago, what they did is they changed it and had us go up this ramp that has been sitting there for like 8 years, unused. We're finally using it, right? So now all this traffic is coming from the lower level, 76, and it's going to go up, continue on down to 295 south. The reason why they did that is they wanted to free up this area for the next phase of construction, because this is going to become an elevated roadway here, just like raised earth, that leads to a ramp and then represents the 295 north segment. I also want to point out, because I mentioned it earlier, is this is the Dukes of Hazzard General Lee ramp, 295 north. This is going to come up here and we'll go around this way and also connect to 295 north. So let's move on. That is May 7th. May 11th, just a few days later, we have a different vantage point, but right here they needed to build a new support tower, so they got to go deep to build a big solid concrete foundation. Again, traffic used to traverse and drive through here, but they're digging it all up, because this right here is where they're going to start building that new ramp. It's like I knew, right? I stopped the camera right there. They've cleaned out a lot of this here because this is all going to get filled in and likely raised up to be at the same grade. That is May 11th. May 20th, we just get a different vantage point of this construction aspect here as I zoom the camera up, and you can see some more work being there. May 27th, a couple weeks later, again, just that same, but you look in the center here. We're going to come back into the center. You got all these other construction pipes here. Now look at this. They started building a foundation, digging this out because they need to, go deeper with the concrete to build a heavy foundation. This wall ramp for the 295 south ends here. The new one's for 295 north will be further back here. That is May 27th. June 7th. Just another vantage point where you can see this, the concrete poured here for the lower level foundation for what's going to be a column. You can see this is emptied out. Is that just sand, or did they pour concrete there? I'm not sure. June 12th, look at that fast. In 5 days, they got that column going there. June 12th, back here, they've done more work, cleared out more area. July 7th, just more vantage points. Oh, look down here. You can see the column is now developed over there in that place. Just more effort going on here. Eventually, we're going to get to the point where we start seeing some elements of this new ramp going in. And I think right there we have one steel beam. You have all these beams queued up. Maybe this is it. We're heading to August 17th. Here we go. You got these four. Look, it all starts with just those four little beams. And when it's done, we're going to end up with something that looks like that. And then this is now 9/11, God bless America. You can see they started putting the wall panels in, how this is going to go all around. So it's going to look, it's the same structure that they used here. It's going to be around here. It's going to be raised up. And again, this will be 295 North right here. And then this was filmed just 3 days ago. They've gotten a couple layers of that in. So as they build this up, they will be backfilling all this with dirt. And they'll be building, this will be, you know, 6, 7, 8 lanes of roadway for north and south, and it'll go up and around and then connect down there. So that was an easy segment. A lot of progress being seen there. So we're heading into the last segment of the video. We've been so focused on the wall rebuild and the Browning Road Bridge rebuild that we haven't really put any attention on what's happening south of it. Well, partly of that is because I haven't been doing videos the last 6 months of 2025. In this center lane here, there are 7, I think, brand new columns, all developed within 6 months. Now, consider that each one of these is completely unique, so it's not like they figure it out one time and just repeat it, you know, cookie cutter, rubber stamp it, and do it again and again. No, each one of these is a unique aspect that took a lot of extra thought and consideration when they developed them. Plus, you have a new column here that's 8. There's one north of north of Browning Road that's 9, and a couple more floating around. So there's like a dozen support structures in place. There's still a few more that need to be built. Let's go back to March 2025, just to give you a perspective of how this has changed. So right here, we have one little column, but in the center area here, there's very little here 6 months ago. This is the northbound 4276. There's that Dukes of Hazzard ramp. I have a buddy, Tom's got a General Lee, so it's always on my mind when I see that ramp. But guys, look at this. There's nothing here. They marked this out for a future column. This is back in March. Not developed at the time, empty, empty, empty. Finally, you get to this point, you got one vertical column in a underground support basin. You have another basin going in here for another support column. But how barren is that compared to, that was March, guys. This is September. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right in the middle. Plus this guy, plus that guy, plus a few more. That's an impressive effort. Also keep in mind that while they did this, they finished the rebuild of the Browning Road Bridge, removed the temporary bridge, and did significant work on the rebuild of the collapsed Wall 2022 raised roadway. They have to have a ton of guys working on this project right now. 2025 clearly has been the most productive year for the Direct Connection project in all of its years that it's been developed. Now, when you start seeing all these columns, the obvious question that people have is, well, Mark, how does it all come together? How do those columns add up to supporting the overhead roadway? Well, what I did here is don't beat me up on my graphic skills. I created a little PowerPoint with a slide. I captured a still image of that film there, and I'm going to overlay and show you guys how this all comes together. Hopefully this makes sense. Before I do that, though, I just want to point out one thing. There are 2 types of structural columns in this project. One is a very traditional column. You have a roadway, and you put a column underneath it, right? It holds it up. We all get that. But in certain areas, you have this type of structure, and I'm pointing this out because I think there's 7 different areas in the Direct Connection design where they do this. And what's happened here is, even though this is on the ramp here at the end, the elevated roadway, the engineers decided that with stress testing and different load-bearing aspects, they needed a support area here, but they couldn't just drop a column below the roadway because 295 was there. So what they've had to do is put these 2 vertical columns here, span across 295 with the steel beam, and it's connected there. There are 7 of these types of structures in the Direct Connection project in that southern aspect. We're going to dive in now. So what we have here is, in my poor graphic depiction, is 290. The blue is 295 south, red is 295 north, green is 42 north to 295 north. Remember we talked about that extra lane? And by the way, these north and south on 295 here in the elevated segment actually are like next to each other. Don't be confused by my spacing here. It's just the way I did the graphics. If you take away the decking, the roadway decking, guys, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 new vertical elements that still need to be developed. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 horizontal beams, just like I showed you guys with missing moves, that need to be put in place so that they can do the overhead decking. You know, one thing you hear all the time is, why does this take so long? Even if you discount and take away the aspect of the road collapse and rebuilding, it's like, why does this take so long? Because 100,000 or more cars travel this roadway every day, and they had to design this not only for the best way to support the roadway, but also keeping in mind, how do we keep traffic flowing? Did they want to have 4 of these vertical steel beam spans holding up the 42 to 294th roadway? Probably not the preferred solution, but it's the only way they could make this all work to keep traffic flowing the entire time, and then be able to break apart the roadway surface here and build a row of these things. Which comes to the point of, what I've noticed here is you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in a row. They're winding down this aspect of the construction. Well, over here, guys, and what I highlighted with the yellow is there are 1, 2, 3, 4 vertical elements here. I may have missed some things. The blueprints are complex, but I think for you guys understanding what's going on here, I think I'm pretty accurate here. So you have 4 new columns. So what they're going to have to do is, once this winds down, the crews will start moving over here. Maybe they've already started, because I see some piles of dirt, and start building 1, 2, 3, 4 new structures. These are, if you see this plain sort of column, square column, that's what these are. And then you have this T structure. If you look right here, basically what this is going to be very similar over here. Let's take a look at 295 South. Again, you need the 2 verticals, the 2 horizontal elements, and off to the left is the rebuilt raised roadway. You'll have a decking structure going across the top of top of Browning Road, connecting to these steel beams, connecting to the next one. It's going to utilize these concrete support pillars here, and then connect to that ramp there. That's 295 southbound. 295 northbound, you're going to have, well, first off, I didn't depict it, but there's the new ramp that they're building. It'll be just like this one, but next to it. So from that ramp, the roadway is going to go to this horizontal beam, and then to this T-shaped structure. And then from there, it's going to connect to this one. And then from this one, it's going to go to the rebuilt raised roadway. That's 295 northbound. And then this one's really extra complex. 42 northbound to 295 northbound. You got that Dukes of Hazzard ramp. The roadway is going to come off of that, lay on top of this horizontal steel beam, lay on top of that horizontal steel beam, and then connect to this structure. Now, I want to point out, this guy is unique. It's the only one I've seen like this. For this T structure, the roadway just sits on top of it, and it's kind of probably bolted in. For whatever reason, they decided to, it's a T structure, but they have the center concrete piece, which you can see right here. So see how it's that step that we talked about earlier? It's on both sides of this. I don't know if my hands depicted that properly, but that's what that structure is. And so you have the roadway coming across 1, 2 horizontal steel beams connecting to this concrete structure, and then continuing on this way. Again, most of this aspect is sitting on those horizontal steel beams that traverse across the roadway that's underneath it. And then finally from here, it's going to connect onto this new concrete pillar here, and then over to the rebuilt segment. So that's it. So that is all 3 of those roadways. They still have, by my count, 4 new vertical aspects to be developed in this lane. Soon I would imagine they're going to be shifting over. And that's it, guys. That is my October 2025 update of the direct connection. A lot in there. Thanks for following me. Follow me on all the channels. I'm the guy that writes about new things coming to the area. Hey, I'm doing TikToks now. I'm doing Instagram. I'm going to be doing a lot more. We're going to see where it goes. I don't know what the business model is for those platforms, but let's just push it and see what happens. Thanks, guys, for supporting and following me.